Real quick, guys, before we jump in, this is the dev version. The dev version, so it's not like the official. These aren't on the sim yet. They're bugged. I had some bugs. That's why I'm not including gameplay. But we're going to dive deep into it. But before we do that, if you just do me a super quick favor, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 10,000. And I couldn't do it without you, so thank you. Except for you who didn't subscribe. Still thank you. What's going on, everyone? Vampyr Gaming here, and today we're going to be breaking down the new Goal D Roger leader. And we're going to talk about this, what I think the approach the deck should take, and then just kind of some of the techs for the deck, both red and purple cards. So this leader is very interesting, and I think a lot of people, I would like to offer some clarity, because I think there is some confusion around how this leader works. And as it's worded, it says, if you have any Dawn cards on your field, give one Dawn card that would be added during your Dawn phase to your leader. So let's break that down. If you have any on your field, give one Dawn that would be added during your Dawn phase. What happens when you have 10 Dawn? You add 0 Dawn. Your Dawn you just refresh phase. You go Dawn phase, nothing happens. You go refresh phase. So a lot of people seem to think that this leader cannot play 10 drops. He can play 10 drops. Essentially, how he's designed is he's incredibly powerful, 7k leader, and he's designed to essentially play a turn behind, almost like you get a free Magellan. You get a free Magellan the moment the game starts. So when you have 0 Dawn, you don't have any Dawn cards on your field. So then you should refresh, add 1, and you can play a Searcher. But then only on your first turn, and then the turn that you've already hit 10 Dawn, and you just wouldn't add any, are the turns that you'll actually not have to do this. But then so you go 1, and then your 3 curve is a 2, your 4 curve is a 3, your 5 curve is a 4, your 4 curve is a 3, your 6 curve is a 5. So you're essentially playing behind 1 curve the whole time. And it's kind of like to delay him. And that's like his downfall. He can still attack, though. Many other multicolored 5 life leaders cannot attack. This is the only other ones we've seen so far are the new Sabo, which is a 6k leader, technically. And then you have Eustace, who is like the test run of all of this. And I guess because Eustace never showed up that they thought that this was okay. And now we have a 7k leader. Now, the other part of his effect, if you have 9 or less Dawn cards on your field, give this leader minus 2,000 power. So he's a 5k 5 life leader that can attack. On that basis alone, really strong. So I think there's a lot of, quote, cooking that needs to be done for this leader. Just because he is so different. You're playing behind a curve. And then on top of that, you are a 7k leader in end game. So I think there's several approaches you can take to this. One, I think, is just, playing incredibly defensive. I'm picking a little bit more offensive aggression here. But I think the directions you can take with this leader is, one, you can just play like turbo ramp aggro, which is like kind of what we're doing. You can also play like a tank, because the moment you hit 10, you're 7k leader, and you're the strongest leader in the game. You're hitting for 7, and you're defending at 7. So incredibly, incredibly powerful. But you have to play behind until you get to late game. But you're going to take every hit on your way up, because defending out at 7 is easier than defending out at 5. And usually you're not, even if you go down to 1 life, it's still better to be 1 life 7. And so on that basis is kind of how I built this, and I think it's how you find your way to win. But so, yeah, the leader, any leader that becomes stronger in the late game, you pretty much take the hits early just because it's cheaper to counter out later. Otherwise, you're just wasting counter, in theory. there are instances where, of course, if they for some reason can beat you, you want to be careful of that. Now, again, we're going to go through. We only have one deck list here. It's not like the ace one, but I think I actually kind of cooked with this. So him, of course, being a 7K leader, the biggest challenge is this card right here makes him a 9K leader, which we've never, I can't say never, but like we've never had to deal with a 9K leader and Radical Beam. We only had to deal with 9K leader double Sabo, right? But we've dealt with 9K leaders before. It was a 4-life leader, and in the same respect, they kept generating value. The only difference is that that leader could continually heal after the fact, and it would always have 2 life no matter what. So a little bit different here, but we've dealt with 9K leaders. So this is essentially 9K leader.deck for me. Just because it's a newbie Y Luffy. It's a great way to kind of think about it. But so with that in mind, one of the first cards I think belong in this deck is Shiraya. One, because your opponent is going to have to attach Dawn to swing at it with their leader. And so assuming they want to do any kind of efficient swing, we're going to get a 1K counter on this card, but then we also get to potentially just block 1K. And then in the same respect, assuming we're going to go into a Roger meta, we're going to want Shiraya to swing back at their leader. And then we have Chopper. So Chopper is a 4/4. This is just a 2K. I think this is completely replaceable. I just went ahead and added it in because, again, you're going to be able to apply a lot of pressure, but we want a little bit of defense, and we want a couple of 2Ks just to kind of keep us alive. And then we went ahead and added in this Shanks. You can only play this on 5. So, again, like you can play this on 4. You have to play this on your 5 Dawn turn. It's almost like you're missing your curve every single turn. Like, you're already off your curve, so, like, you're just missing your curve every turn. But this one, of course, you can trash a card and make it become a 2K, and then he's a 4/6. So he's going to be able to swing. And then in late game, he's going to be able to block, but also give you additional defense. So your 7K leader, you're going to automatically be able to go up to 9 with this just by playing this card. And we're playing a lot of bricks. This deck is incredibly greedy because we're operating on the assumption it's going to be very hard for him to swing at us once we hit 7. And we, of course, have Newgate. We're just going to tank up, go 9. And then we're going to hit him for 9. Then we can hit him for 9, 10 the next turn, establishing another one, assuming they cannot remove it. So I think there's a lot of potential here and in late game. And in that same respect, this was the same theory that I was doing when I played Shanks. So Shanks, I was like, okay, I play 10 drop first, then I follow up and hit him with a 9, and then it's a 8K differential. And it's like the same math for Red Purple Luffy as well. Again, we're just kind of playing behind curve until we get to 10, and then we have to have hit 10. So we'll only be able to play a 9 on our first 10, unless we ramp to 10 during that turn, which does have merit as well. And so this 10-drop Shanks, though, you play it, then your opponent's characters are minus 1,000. So your 7K lead, minus 1,000. You go up, you just create a 5K differential from just their leader. And just like the 5K stat line. So like their leader isn't affected by Shanks, it's still 4. But like any 5K body, anything like that, you're essentially creating like the base of any swing. So like imagine Zoro. Zoro's just cooked. Zoro don't stand a chance. But yeah, so I think there's some merit. I think this card is definitely flex and cuttable. I mean, I think same thing here. I think effectively you just want to play red top end. You want to play purple ramp, red top end. Because then once you get up there again, your opponent's not going to be able to swing. You're going to feel safe. You're a 5-life leader too. Depending on how it shapes out, I mean, you could be a 3-life 7K leader. But so we have Shanks. And we have Goldie, Roger. This is just a rusher. You go down to 0. At a 7K leader, it's almost like arguably very safe to go down to 0 in the same respect as like Whitebeard. Depending on what you've set up in the previous turns, we're playing 12 blockers. So you could even play like chump choppers and things like that as well. But I think it's pretty safe. So like you can go down to 0. You can spit out this. You're going to hit him with 7 on your leader, unblockable. Hit him with this. So that alone is a lot of counter demanding. And I think, yeah, I mean, Roger just kind of steals games. Black Maria. So I do want to take a moment to talk about this card because everybody's like, oh, just go Black Maria, go up to 7. But in reality, unless you're playing against like Blue Purple Luffy and they're ramping and you get to kind of like ramp with them, using this to go up to 10 by gaining 5, like after 5, so you're at 4, just to be 7 for that duration, because then you get to hit them for 7. It isn't worth it. So I think there's a lot of like clamoring about this card and like how good it's going to be. But if I'm at 5, you're at 4, I'm going to go up and then I'm going to go down just to get a 7k swing. And then the moment my turn's over, I'm back to a 5. Now, this card can have merit if you're using cards that minus. So I opted to not play. All the purple top end has minus, and we'll kind of talk about a couple of them. And I just opted to not play them, deeming it not worth it overall. Just because the minus aspect, you want to be 10. Once you're 10, we need to stay there. And then Usohachi, best rester, best purple card, I think, out there right now. Rests most blockers, and it's a 2K. And then Bankure as our ramp body. Potential room for other ramp bodies, and we'll kind of talk about that. I went a little event heavy, opting for those just because the trigger aspect, and we'll talk about some more in the tech section as well. But Bankure allows you can play 2 of these at 8 Dan, then if your opponent, or 9 Dan, because you'll have to be at 9, and if your opponent plays a 10 drop, you have 2 giant swings at them, not including whatever else you do. So big fan of this. And if you play this, like if you were to play 2 of these, your leader would become 7, because you're at 9, you play this, you go 10, your leader's now 7. And then we have Charlotte Katakuri, best blocker. I think, this allows you to apply aggression and also save these bodies and just hit your opponent very hard. I think it's the best card to come from purple. Great 9-turn play. It still gives you 8k leader. You have 7k leader. You have now 8k leader that hits them as well. So even if they want to swing 7, in the same respect, you have Shiraya and Katakuri to have your back. So I was wrong. You actually played 16 blockers. And so you set up a bunch of these. Then you play down a Roger. You go 7, 8, 8, 8, 8, 13. And you still have blockers to kind of protect you. So I think this card's a must in here. And then Radical Beam, I don't know if this is necessary. You could potentially put in another 2k here, but I just think 9k lead with this, you're automatically countering up to 13 with 1 card is just an abomination. Even with like 9 cost Zoro attempting a lethal, it makes you incredibly strong. So now our ramp events, I'm opting for 3 It's to Die For. I think you could go 4 God Thread, or 3 God Thread, 4 It's to Die For. I think that's fine. This card allows you to potentially ramp 2. So you got to remember, we're playing behind a curve. So our opponent's going to go 3, and then we go 4, and we can only play this once we get to 4. But then even once we're at 6, we go up to 6, assuming we haven't ramped, assuming they play something on 5, that's a 6k. We can double ramp up to 8, go to 10, then we have 9, play a new gate, and then we're going to be at our threshold that we're kind of going for. So the double ramp aspect of this, I think, is incredibly relevant. Even if we're at 8, double ramping up with this to 10 can be relevant as well, just because now we're going to be that 7k and we're not going to have to attach that 1 Dawn. And then we have Lead Performance Disaster. I think this is going to be super huge here, just because you're going to retain the value. It's like the same argument before with Red Purple Luffy in the beginning. You get to play this draw card, so it replaces itself and it ramps, so you're not losing any card value or playing any like pathetic card. But then again, you also have triggers. So this one says add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active. Activate this card's main effect. This is your best trigger in the deck. You get the draw card and ramp just for free. And we're going to take those hits because we're a 7k leader in late games. So those extra cards, this is going to replace it and ramp us. And so if we hit 2 ramps, we're super up. We hit, say we play a ramp card. So we go 4, we play this, we ramp 5, they hit us, we ramp 6, then they hit us again, we ramp 7, we go ramp 8, and then 9, and so we're going to ramp 10 that turn, and then we're going to be 7, and we're never going to have to touch Dawn again. We have to drop all our big guys. And then, God Thread, it gives us removal, so we can play this on 6 after their 5. We can't play it on 5, but we can play it on 6 after their 5. Ramp us 1 to 7, and then KO and then just hit him for 7 at life, removing any potential threats for us. Ideally, we want these smaller ramps. But again, like, you can't do a double ramp unless you're on 8, and there's still some merit to it, just because then you're not going to have to attach that Dawn during the refresh. And potentially, you know, we play the 10s, and we play less 10s because we want to focus on the 9. We want to focus on these Katar Curries on 8. So we can play this on 9. We can play this going to 10. We can play this going to 9, and then we can play these in the late game. And yeah, so I think, again, like, you know, the strategy is to really ramp. We're playing 15 ramp cards, maybe a little too heavy. And let's go ahead and just kind of talk about the red text. So for me, the red should be the top end of the deck, but I think there's also a couple of really unique things that you can do in Roger as well. That, of course, being like, you know, you can prioritize Newgate, and you could go more ramp and Whitebeard package. Whitebeard has decent top end at this point, you know, so that could be a approach you take there. Buggy as well, if you really wanted to. You have to reveal a red event, but you could play more heavy red counter. So you could go and just play like super tanky, playing like red counter events. Because you're a 7k leader and just become like untouchable. You play a bunch of like smaller bodies, hit them very hard, and you just like keep yourself. Because swinging 7 for leader is going to be so impactful. It's just 2 free Dawn. You're playing with 12 Dawn at the end of the game. So every turn is more. So I think Buggy has some merit, plus like the Zoro aspect. So I think if you want to go a little more red eventy, you can do that. Shreya, I'm mentioning him just here in the tech as well. Again, if it becomes a Roger meta, I think this is the biggest sleeper card out there. Because for 3 Dawn, you're going to be able to swing 7 at your opponent's leader. And so that's just the best. And then he's going to be a 7k, so it's going to be incredibly hard for your opponent to remove as well. So a lot of opportunity here. And I think it's going to be like, I think this is going to become, if we enter Roger format, this is going to become a red staple. Baccarat. This one, it's the same thing as the other Shanks, but this one has a 1k, but then you get the trash one card and buff somebody by 2,000 for a battle. So it's essentially allows you to facilitate 2ks. This one just has a 1k since the deck is very bricky as we have it now. And then added in Rayleigh, the old reliable Roger Pirate. So we do play a bunch of bricks. We are 7k in late game, so there is some merit to playing out these blockers in late game, getting that draw a little bit of cycle, and just finding our counter cards. Yasop, I think Yasop has a really good place in this as well. You get to play him for 5, you go up to 6, so 8k leader. You play this 8k leader. In Shanks, this was a huge card because like this just sometimes turns off lethal, because for every body that your opponent needs to swing with, this essentially is a 1k. So say they have 3 attacks they need to make to go for lethal, you play this, you get 3k worth of counter just off of that alone. So I think there's some merit to this, even more so than like Newgate. And then Dream Luffy. Why Dream Luffy? He's just the best rusher out there right now. Lets you put in a lot of pressure, especially since you're going to have that 8. In the late game, I think there's, you know, there might maybe something in a faces the place kind of strategy, almost like a Whitebeard, just kind of aggro. Now, Douglas Bullet, this is just a generic 2K. He's a body, but he is a former Roger Pirates. If you know, you know. Big old DB. I think I would love to play the 8-drop this one. But the -4, essentially, to use his effect is going to cost you your leader. So I don't love it. Benjamin Beckman is just the best red removal card. So, again, you could potentially play, like, control and then just hit him really hard in the late game. I think that also could be a Roger strategy. You kind of, like, ramp up a little bit, play a little bit of control, and just, you know, keep the big bodies clear and hit them hard. Same thing here, like, we want just top end and strong top end. So this one is searchable with like an engine if you want to play like a Shanks engine. If you want to go Yasop, Beckman, it kind of gives you a little bit more searchability there with like Uda and the events there. But at 7-9, giving you a 9k. So if it is a Roger meta, I think this could be relevant. And then Dragon, you can play Dragon on 9. Dragon on 9 is going to allow you to go 7-9, and then you're going to become a 10k, a 7k leader, and you get to hit him with dragons. And so I think this just, again, if you want to go super aggressive, you can do Dragon. And then Rayleigh, again, just like a little bit more of that control aspect, but same thing. Once you're a 7k leader, playing Rayleigh and getting 5k worth of counter, I usually think of this card as a 5k. Just getting that 5k worth of counter can be a game-defining moment. You do this, leave up 1 Radical Beam. I mean, you usually just can't lose. And then, yeah, I think, Jonas once said this was like the best red card out there. And I think, with a 7k leader, lowering those bodies, making him have to attach Dawn to swing could be huge. And then, of course, this Shanks, if we get to 10, we kind of still want to try to ramp. We can play this, remove pretty much anybody in the game right now. And so we're really down for that. And then, of course, the Conqueror's Hockey. This one is like, again, it's like a budget Shanks. You can tap 1 Dawn to give all your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power, but on a 7k leader, this can go a very long way. Really good in Rayleigh, kind of good in everything else. I think it's an option people may consider. And then Mulgun, really just for the green-purple, the Gerpel-Luffy matchup, you just can remove theirs. I don't think this is as good just because my list doesn't have any, 6Ks, and you have to, again, play kind of everything off-curve, so. But it's a good removal card. And then Honesty Impact is just probably the best red removal card. Purple removal usually requires some form of Dawn minus. I think it's the most cost-effective one out there. If we want to kind of, play that control aspect and then just hit them for 7s because it's very hard for them to swing effectively, I like this. All right. All right. Now, on to purple. So, for purple, first card that kind of comes to my mind is like a potential choice is Zorojoro. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, well, you can't Zorojoro, you're a 5-life leader. So Zorojoro is delayed. You can only play him going second. So on 3, your opponent's going to swing at you. Then you get to play this on your 4 because you're at 3. And then they go 5, and they swing at you, then you're at 6, and then you can ramp with this, ramp again, and you're at 8. You can't, ramp all the way up to 10, but then your next turn you're going to go to 10, and then you can play a 9, and then afterwards you can start playing your 10s. So, I like it because it actually weirdly works, just because the instances you can play it due to the Dawn delay. Another card is Basil Hawkins. Pretty straightforward. You play him, you draw a card, or you add a Dawn. You play him, you ramp a Dawn. It's rested, but you do have trigger, so you have counter and a trigger, whereas the other cards, again, we're playing a lot of these ramp events. We're playing 11. You can ramp, and then, just trigger at ramp. So when you take your life, it can help you get there faster. Brûlé, another form of ramp for the deck. We can play Brûlé. It's a blocker, so it lets us block a swing, and then you, of course, can add 1 Dawn to your field as rested. And so this can come up when you're going into that 10 Dawn turn as well. So you're at 9, you played out this. You're going to be at 10, so then when you go to add, you don't have to attach anything, and you can start playing 10s. We have Paulie. Who here remembers Paulie? Paulie, this card was the best purple ramp card out there. Now, you can only play this card when you're at 8. You can only play it when you're at 8. But it is a form of removal. Do I think it's great? No. Because you have to be at 8, you pay 5, you pay 2, you gain an active, and you KO a 4. God Thread is just stronger. But figure we'd mention it here. I still think, Paulie's just a thing of the past, an archaic relic, As we've continued to make new cards, they've just gotten better, and Paulie's just gotten worse. But, Miss All Sunday, and here's where this card is super interesting. So it's one of the better ramp cards. You pay 5, you get a body, you draw a card. You pay 5, you get a body, you draw a card. So you can play her on 6, you pay 5, ramp, go 7, it's rested, and you get the draw card, and you go into 9, which allows you to play Katakuri if you want, and then Katakuri's ability allows you to add 1 rested, which is going to set you at 10, and then with Katakuri setting you at 10, then your next turn, you're not going to have to do that. So Katakuri is like a big part of this deck, but this kind of helps you get there, and it lets you draw cards, so replace itself, and then it does have a potential trigger to be relevant. So if you use it, you can go back up to 10, but you are going to have to once again, like if you activate this on 10, you will have to once again attach one Don when you ramp back up to 10. So just something to keep in mind, but there's potential here. Now, Eustace Captain Kidd. Why am I mentioning Eustace Captain Kidd? The blocker, I'm sure a lot of you all are familiar with this card. He allows you to do minus and replace it, but it becomes heavily reliant on this. So I don't like that because it essentially makes it a 2-card combo, and one piece does. And if you're not playing out 2 bodies, you don't want 2-card combos just because it requires too many pieces and adds layers of inconsistency. One, you have to see 2 cards instead of seeing 1 card. If 2 cards are strong together, strong alone, and then stronger together, we love to see that. But when they're like this, and then it's kind of reliant, I'm very hesitant. So I don't like Eustace. Rosinante. I actually really like this in theory. Rosinante, we're playing a lot of these events. You can play this cycle. And then you can set 2 Dawn. As active, which lets you be able to play events and things like that, like any kind of counter event, Radical Beam, things like that. So you could play this, and you could play a 10, and then you can play like 10-drop Shanks, and then you get the restand the Dawn. And then you have counter events still. So I really like that. I think that this card has heavy potential to be played. Now, this Zorro, he's just blue or purple top end. You get Banish, which is kind of cool. Kind of nice. You can starve your opponent a little bit, maybe. And, like, again, the longer you play the game, the more better off you are because you're a 7K. So, you can play him on 7. But I think Shiki might be a little bit better. Why? So it's crazy because you probably haven't seen this card in a long time. But we kind of ramp up. And this card then, it depends, right? Because there's a ban list coming up. Linlin could be hit. Linlin can just tuck this away. So there is that. But if you have 8 or more Dawn on your field, this character cannot be KO'd in battle. So, like, it's a 7K. You're swinging 7 with this, 7 with your leader, and your opponent cannot answer this. So I think that this has some merit once again, just because we're going to be playing against 7Ks. Like, if we're playing in the mirror, we're probably not playing out these Linlins, which, like, Linlin could be played. You can play Linlin if you have Katakuri. Like, Linlin can be played. Linlin is an option. I'll add in Linlin, and I'll actually add in this too. But so Linlin can tuck things, remove things, is the best card. But you need Katakuri. So that way you can get that Dawn back after you play this on 10. And then this Doflamingo, you really don't like the on play because you have to -1, but it lets you play the Rosinante. So if you're really like about it, you're at 9 when you're playing this. So you could go down to 8. And then you're going up to 10 still, as long as you're not trying to ramp that turn. You could play these 2 and establish 2 big threats and start getting that Dawn. So I think there is some merit there as well. But I think the most is this card. But this card is going to have to be a game ender. Because the moment you go down 10, you're back to a 5. And you're just like, then you're just stuck in the woods, lost in the woods type beat. Because you're going to minus all 10 Dawn. And you're going to KO all other characters. And then you get the ramp 1 and trash 1. Or gain a life, trash a life. And so this is really like a game ender. But it is playable. Because you're strong enough to not lose. And you can stick this for a turn. And you can ramp up to play it earlier. So there is some merit to this card. That's why I wanted to mention it here. But again, once you use it, you're just 5K leader for the rest of the game. So you really need to use this when you're going for game. And you can swing 7 with your leader and, like, use this however you need to do it. Or 17 with your leader. And then use this however you need to do it. Then we got Gum Gum Jet Gatling. Helps with the bricks. And then if you trigger it, it ramps. So we love a good life trigger ramp 1. And then Hell's Judgment, again, we kind of have this Rosinante. If you're a 7K leader and you -2 characters, -3,000, that can be so strong. And so you play Newgate, you go 9, and then you get 2 back from Rosinante. You have this, and you hit them with that. Right? Like, a lot of potential. Do I think it's great? No. Just because we don't want minus effects. And I actually skipped over this Eustace Captain Kidd, so we'll talk about this Eustace Captain Kidd. If you have 5-drop kit into this, you're so up. If you don't, you're so down bad. It lets you be a 6, but you could just be a 7. If you have Katakuri busted. So, like, there is potential because you could play this Katakuri, and then Katakuri is going to keep giving you that one back when you minus it off of this. So, like, again, there is some merit to, like, a -1 during your turn if you have the Katakuri, because that card is just busted. So you could become potentially, 8K leader, 8K leader, 8K leader, which is really good. And then you have 8K body, 8K leader. And yeah, Jet Gatling. And then Brachio Bomber, a removal card that also ramps you one. So this is just this is 1 cost more God Threat. It's a 6 for 6 instead of a 5 for 5. But it's something I feel like a lot of us kind of forgot about. And I think it has some playability. But yeah, so these are some of the techs. I think this covers the majority. You can potentially consider things like this Luffy too, but you really want to keep it chill on the purple ones because a lot of them, if you're going to do the minus, you really need this Katakuri so you can add up to one of your Dawn cards from your Dawn deck as rested. And yeah, so let's go ahead and just wrap things up. Let's talk about the leader. So we'll pull up the leader once again here. And just kind of take a moment to talk about it. Does Roger kind of ruin the game? Does Roger ruin the game? Where is my Roger? Here he is. Does Roger ruin the game? I think it sets a dangerous precedent. A lot of people are like, well, they could have printed him as a 5K leader, but I don't think you fully grasp it. So his downfall, he can attack, which I think is already a huge up on his part. He can attack and he's 5 life and he's dual colored. So those are all pluses. Those are all good things. We play 5 life leaders anyways, but now you have a 5 on the worst day, he's a 5 life 5K red purple. And red-purple is a crazy good combination. We've seen this leader show up time and time again with red-purple. Asia's seen some success with Sugar. We've seen some success with red-purple Luffy. At the time red-purple Luffy came out in those decks, he was arguably the best deck out. We just didn't have enough time to fully realize that. But Johnny won 2 events back-to-back through Swiss and Top Cut playing that leader. That's how strong it was. I played against him, and I couldn't win a single game either. That's how strong that leader was. I'm worried we kind of set a precedent. You, of course, can play purple. You can play cards like Magellan for this. The biggest thing is the leader does have to play behind. So on 3, they can't play a 3. They can only play a 2, which there really isn't any play. So they're going to swing at you for 7. And then they're really just kind of playing a turn behind and missing those crucial curves as his downfall. But in return, he can still attack. So he can apply aggression. And then in late game, he's going to have very strong aggro because he's going to be swinging at you for 7. And they've kind of made some cards. So I just worry with this set overall, it's setting a dangerous precedent for just stronger leaders to where we kind of phase out the older leaders. And it's fine, but some people lose their favorite characters in terms of leaders, which is part of the reason why people play the game. And the last time we introduced a leader with a new stat line, he dominated the format for pretty much 3 formats until he was banned from OP-02 to, I guess it's technically 4.75 because they banned him near the end of, they banned him near the end of OP-04. And then he came back even to the point where JCM, Jonathan Chow, still has topped with him. So my biggest fear is just on the precedent every time that they've made a new leader with a new stat line. Having to attach 2 Dawn to swing means you only have 2 Dawn or 8 Dawn to work with minimum on your turn on any turn that you want to deal damage to this guy. In the late game. In the early game, again, they're going to take all of their hits more than likely is the way that I see it. They could play incredibly defensive, then just be 5 life 7K. Who knows? Who knows the direction that they'll truly take that will be successful. But if I was playing this leader, I'm taking the damage. I'm playing new gates. I'm going up to 9. Tons of cards in hand. You can also, again, play heavily into 2K counters just like your Whitebeard. You can play just a ton of counter cards. You can just say, I'll just play behind a turn, and then in the late game, you're just never going to be able to beat me. And that could very well be the strategy, right? You might not need to do. We might be overvaluing the purple aspect, and we could just go on the red. So Only time will tell. I just worry it sets a dangerous precedent. We see all of these, like, and every card game at some point is going to have power creep. I just worry that we kind of mimic what Dragon Ball Super, I guess people call it Masters now at this point, but when I played it was just Dragon Ball Super because there was only one. That they kind of follow suit with what they just continually printed more and more text on cards and more abilities and like these ultimates, and they added the extra deck and just all these kinds of crazy things. And then Digimon was pretty much like you have to buy, like it makes sense to drive shareholder value. You have to buy the new set to get the new deck, the new good cards, because they're just the best deck. And so I just, for the longevity of One Piece, worry that we're going in just too fast. And then we're also like going even faster on set releases. So we're going to hit it's going to feel like we're hitting it even faster because we all like turbo to OP-13. Except for Asia, they kind of get to keep their like own thing, but we all like turbo to OP-15. We're on OP-13, and we're gonna be at OP-15 by the time like April, which sounds so close, considering we're in like OP-11 right now, and we need to be 4 sets by April, which is like crazy. So it'll be interesting to see, but like I feel like they kind of have to try to sustain where like power during this like turbo period. And it just kind of overall kind of worries me just a little bit. Because then we could get like, like burnt out or like this. We could just get tired of it. Especially if he, like, the good news is if he's going to dominate formats, the formats are going to be a lot quicker. But they're also talking about potentially banning Gum Gum Giant. But again, he's a 5 life that gets to attack. And so I'm going to run some games with him to see how he feels. But a lot of these leaders are bugged right now. A lot of these leaders are bugged on this version. This is the dev version. I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask, and I'm sad that it's at the end. But yeah. But if you found this content of value, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button.